Week update, something we haven't done yet, but we felt like we needed to do this to just keep everybody updated on what's going on with us and what's going on with our oldest. We felt like we needed to do this. So just make sure that you guys are updated. You saw a post of ours today, and yeah, pumpkin in there.
Because she's nosy.
Nick. All right.
Doke.
So here we go. So
Where we gonna start at? What we gonna talk about?
well, yesterday. Let's start there. So yeah, yesterday it was a very trying time. It's still very emotional for both of us.
Yes.
We both made posts about it. Jamaica made a live on her post on her own Facebook page. I made a post about Nicholas that I shared with several of the groups, DMDD, Matthew's Kids, Black Children with DMDD, a couple of support sites out there, DMD Dads. So a couple of different support groups. I shared that post, but let Jamaica go ahead and tell you what we went through yesterday.
So yesterday, just like if anybody saw my super emotional live this morning, basically what happened was that when our son was released from the hospital in December, that is when we got his DMDD diagnosis. We knew as parents that there was something going on. We even had several conversations with another family member about him being possibly misdiagnosed. And we had already had our world going around what it is to be a parent of a child on the spectrum. So we were doing all the things that we knew that was going to possibly cause a trigger for them to say, okay, it's a little more deeper than what you guys think. And when it was time for us to enroll him back in school, of course they wanted all the typical things they would ask for when you enroll a child in school. They wanted a lease, they wanted, just things of that matter, just knowing where we are and different things. But they don't mention anything about hospital papers or anything like that. So just me being me, I took all of that up there. I was like, this is where he's been for the last couple of months. These are reports from the school. This is new paperwork. And when we went to present that paperwork, and then the situations start to happen at school, no one had any knowledge of any of the paperwork I dropped off. So all of the paperwork saying what DMDD was, there were even papers that we dropped off to the school that even told them what it would look like in the classroom, what was the safety plan. We had all of this already ready. Papers disappeared. So when everything happened in December, right before Christmas break, again, we had already presented the school with these documentations, and everything that happened, in fact, could have traced back to his diagnosis, but they lost the paperwork.
So they lost the paperwork. So we had a situation at the school where the school had sent out an email about a TikTok challenge. Some of you may have seen a post that we made, that our son made, a video about where TikTok is bad, I think is the title of it. Mm-hmm. That's a video that he made because the school sent out an email on either a Wednesday afternoon or a Thursday afternoon. He was on the bus, and the email should have gone to parents, but there was a TikTok challenge that there could be a possible shooter on school grounds on that Friday, which was December 17th. It upset Nicholas enough that in the video you can see him saying goodbye to his animal pets and things, that in case that did happen on the day of. So what Nicholas thought during his transitions, one of his class transitions, he thought they were getting close to the end of the school day, and that he didn't see any police there, and he thought that if a shooter was going to show up, it would be at the end of the day. So Nicholas set off the fire alarms at the school, and he got charged for that. That night, he was taken into custody and was taken to the Crisis Intervention Center, which called us in about an hour time, and we had to go pick him up from the Criminal Intervention Center, or the Community Intervention Center. So we picked him up that night. He had he tried to attack one of the workers at the center. He tried to stab him with a pin. He had a DMDD episode there. They called IMSA, and they were transporting him to St. Francis Hospital. St. Francis Hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma doesn't have, nothing against them, they don't have the adequate resources for DMDD children right now, or even children who have been suicidal. We spent 2.5 weeks up there when Nicholas was suicidal, and another week and a half up there when he was homicidal. So he had been there previously. He'd been there for 2.5 weeks in the pediatric emergency room. He was never admitted into a bed. They don't have any psychiatry beds, so they don't even have a child psychiatrist available. They do telemed, and you have to wait.
Which could take hours. And when I mean hours, I mean hours. We got there at the time where we were there for 2 weeks. We got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we went through all of the emotions, the being aggressive, the I'm not wanting to be here, then me kind of being sad, and it was just roller coaster. And once Nicholas finally came down, so he had a full-on rage from about 8 o'clock in the morning up until I'm gonna say maybe 4 or 5 that evening. And it wasn't until about 8 or 9 that evening we got a telemed appointment from a doctor in a completely different state. And for them to come on and just ask us questions and ask our son a few questions, and that was it.
So this night we had we knew what was going to happen. We knew that they did not have any available resources. We had already made a list of medical facilities to call, which is what they were going to do with their caseworkers, call every day and try to find a place for him. They were going to give the information about his violence, and then the place was going to turn him down and reject him for admission. And then every day they would go through the same process. We had been there long enough that we knew what that process was. We'd been there many times. So we had gotten a list, and we were calling ourselves to facilities in Oklahoma, which is what our insurance limited us to. So we were calling, but that particular night we decided that, during the admission process, he punched an EMT during that process. that night he calmed down, he self-regulated. We knew that once he was self-regulated, he would be semi-compliant with requests, so we asked to be discharged. And then they discharged us against medical advice when they were going to do nothing but keep him in a room for 2.5 weeks in the emergency room, which is not suited for any kind of psychiatric care. And his medicines were coming in much later than they should have been for him. So we took that and we left with that discharge. Well, of course, they reported us to Child Protective Services. So the next day, Jamaica had a hair appointment or
Something.
it was something.
Yeah.
And she went to go take care of that, and I was here with the kids, and we were fine. And then there was a knock on the door, and it was a Child Protective Services investigator. This was a threat to Nicholas. Nicholas did not want her in the house. The only thing that he knew about Child Protective Services is that they were there to separate families. And so he attacked the Child Protective Service and then eloped, which means that he left the house. And the Child Protective Services worker called the police. The police arrived because he was attacking her. And then when he eloped, I told them that they needed to go find him. Because I didn't know where he was and he needed to be home. So they went and used their bullhorns and scared him more, and then surrounded him up against the fence and placed him in handcuffs. And during that scuffle, Nicholas kicked one of them. So another charge of assault and battery. And when they were using their bullhorns on Nicholas, he picked up a water can meter lid and chunked it at their car.
So like the little lids that are down on the ground, they're like the guys from the city come and pick them up where your water meter is. Yeah. Pick that up.
Chunked it like a frisbee.
Like a frisbee.
So that tells you that the cortisone and cortisol were, I mean, he's 11 years old. He's strong and sturdy, but I mean, you can tell the cortisone and cortisol were racing through his little system because of that. So the incident at the school where he had pressed the fire alarms twice and we got the charge for that. Now we had an assault and battery and a damage to property. Nicholas was suspended for the incident surrounding the
No, correction. For pulling the fire alarm, they were going to expel. Oh, no, backtrack that. So after all of that, after all of this happened,
well, I'm trying to stick to just the police case.
I know.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. So with that, with the police case, like how that worked, it went, we had these charges. See, I lost my train of thought now. Continue.
So then we had the charge for the setting off the fire alarms, assault and battery of a police officer, and
destruction of public property.
Destruction of government public property. So at that point, for the original offense at the school, they couldn't count the other two offenses, even though somehow they knew about them because the police happened to tell them, I guess, even though that was confidential information, but they seemed to know about it the next day when they called us.
Oh, that's right.
And told us we had I heard you had an exciting weekend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the principal.
The principal at the intermediate. Yeah.
in our
Oh,
small
but
town.
no, he tried to expel him first, and that's when we had to and get a family advocate and an attorney, because from what I was always told, that if a child is on an IEP and if it is something that is a manifestation of their disability, when it comes to, I guess, punishing them, it's done differently. However, if the offense, as they would see, would be violent, then that could be shifted to the child being like suspended from school. But on an IEP, you cannot expel a child. So there were only supposed to be so many days, like in a school year, that a child could be suspended or put out of school. But following that, they also had to have a behavior plan.
Well, yeah, so it's not that a child on an IEP cannot be suspended or receive discipline. There's specific guidelines, and the IDEA Act, the IDEA Act spells out all of those guidelines, and then many states have codified them as well in their handouts and handbooks from their respective state education departments. So he was suspended. Long story short, we had a manifestation meeting, and some of the manifestations had been reduced. So he only spent a 20-day suspension, and he was back in school. Now we were on the Matthews protocol, but we weren't at therapeutic levels at that point. We were very early on. He had been at school maybe a total of 9 days before he got suspended for the 20 days, and then he was in school for another week before he was suspended for the end of the year. And in that case, he assault and battery of a school worker, so another misdemeanor charge. So the assault and battery of a police officer is a felony charge, and these were all going to be processed in the local municipal court system, which is kind of sketchy in the first place, because a felony charge is outside of the charter for municipal court in the city where we live in. I pulled up the charter and looked at it, and it's codified in the city charter that that the municipal court of our city cannot process or prosecute felony charges. So therefore, at the time, the lawyer that we had advised us to request that they be moved to juvenile, and we have. And there was a hope there. We met with a counselor about a month ago.
Yep.
And gave all the paperwork, and there was a hope there that they would not file charges. So yesterday we went to, so long story short, long story long, we had to explain all of this to get to what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Because we haven't really explained this story. So yesterday we ended up back at
the juvenile offices downtown. So in his case, he was like assigned, I guess, like a caseworker. And the first time I met with her, this is now the second or third time I've met with her. This was the first time that she met with JJ and Nicholas. So the first time I went, she was just like, oh my gosh, like, these are the charges we have this, and that. And I was like, yes, but I also have this other paperwork that I'm sure you don't have. So I took her his most recent IEP, his behavior plan, his most recent psychiatric evaluation. I took all of that to her, and she was completely blown away that with everything that was going on, that this is where we would be. So we had to go meet with her again. So what happened is, when I gave her all of this paperwork, it was kind of like we were kind of sitting there, kind of like just going back and forth, like what's gonna happen now? What's gonna happen now? We didn't receive any emails, any phone calls. Like, we got a letter in the mail one day, and I was like, oh, well, we have to go see them on May 10th. So, like, we got all of that set up, and we went to go see her, which was yesterday. So, both my guys were with me. So we're trying to figure out what's going on, and she's basically telling me that the DA already like went and, you know, turned it in, and they're trying to proceed.
Oh, they're pressing charges.
They are in fact pressing charges.
So we have a felony count and 3 misdemeanor counts against Nicholas. And so that's kind of our fight right now. You know,
It's just,
and where can that go? Or, you know, is God going to intercede on this behalf? Is, you know, is Steve Kunzweiler, the DA, I mean, is that where he wants to spend the county tax dollars on prosecuting an 11-year-old with a disability? I mean,
it's interesting the way that people can perceive stuff by just looking at paperwork. That, again, Nicholas was in the office with us. He was being himself. He was being funny. He was laughing. He was cracking jokes. So he did ask if he could use my cell phone. So he was like kind of, you know, engrossed in the cell phone. And the whole time, just because I'm the type of person, like, I can read body language. And I could just tell, like, the way she was in her seat when we first walked in, when she first realized that Nicholas was with me, her body language was completely off. It was just like, oh my gosh. Like
she was super tense.
She was super tense. So she was, just based off of the paperwork that she was presented with, she was super tense, because this paperwork that she received from the local PD, it was just like, he's delinquent, he's aggressive, you have to watch your back, he'll snap on you without. So I mean, she was all tensed up. I mean, she was stuttering over her words. It was really weird and awkward the first couple of minutes, and then as time started going by, she started asking me questions and JJ questions, and started asking Nicholas questions. And then, like, the way he was responding, some of it was him trying to be, you know, cute, and some of it was him being completely honest, and just overall he was just being absolutely witty. And she was just like oh my gosh. And she even said out loud, like,
I mean, he was charming, charming,
absolutely charming
yesterday. And you know, this is what the Matthews Protocol has done for us. You know, the situation that he had, which is Matthews Protocol is a brain-based therapy. And so this is what we've got going on with Nicholas. And so this, has turned him into a charming young man. So we're really happy that he's doing well, but it's really tough when you get the paperwork that is when you get the paperwork that says felony charges by Steve Kunzweiler have been filed against your son. That's sobering, it's somber, it's upsetting that that this is going on. You know, our son is so sweet and charming and kind. He's very observant. He's always looking out for people with less than him. He's very protective of the twins now. Very concerned about their health and their well-being and their safety, and not to an OCD extent that he may have had before, where he was very overprotective of them. And then when they didn't comply with him, it would lead to, you know, an explosive moment. So he's a lot more understanding now. He's more verbal. So Matthew's protocol, but still, you know, the fact is, that's our situation with court, and that's what we're going through. It's what we've been going through, and that's what we're. So June 24th, you know, we have a page. We have our page, Rowdy Family. We have a post asking for prayers and shares, shares and prayers, because we're going to need this, because we're concerned. You know, what does this mean? And nobody can really tell us. We don't have a lawyer. Our lawyer, unfortunately, well, fortunately for her, had a better job offer than being in private practice, and she's an owner in private practice. So that's one of the things. You know, we don't have a lawyer yet. We're going to have to see what we can do, whether we get a public defender or what kind of lawyer we can find and afford. But it's really, you know, it's just really a somber moment for us right now, and we're really, you know, our fight is his fight, and for us it's, you know, it's really heartbreaking, because we know who he is, and they don't know who he is just by reading the paperwork. They don't even understand his diagnoses. So our friends over at Revolutionize DMDD have, you know, we've spoken with them. And if you don't know Revolutionize DMDD, that's rdmdd.org. That's where we got a lot of our information from. But they're supporting us, allowing us access to their information that we can take to our lawyer and to the court system, so that you know, maybe we can educate what's going on here. So rdmdd.org, Revolutionize DMDD has a bunch of resources on Matthew's kids protocol. Of course, we'll continue to have more updates and more resources for you. And you have anything else?
Yes, Nicholas says Saturday to be looking out for a new video that he is going to post.
Oh yeah, we have our TikTok up and running, and Nicholas loves to make stop motion animation,
which is amazing.
Which is absolutely amazing.
But maybe we're biased.
And he does a really good job at it, and we're posting it on our TikTok. We'll have some things on our Instagram. You can find us at RowdyFam19, at RowdyFam19 on TikTok, and I think it's Rowdy.fam19 on Instagram. And then YouTube, we have the same videos that we have here. Excuse me. We process those and we post them up on YouTube after we've put them through a little bit of processing or so. So adding some titles and things like that. So
yeah, and we'll make a post. We'll make a post later about the different places that you can follow us.
All right.
All right.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you on Sunday.